Welcome back to another episode of the Black Male Collective, where we share with you information about some of your favorite black men. Don't forget to like us and subscribe and hit that nice little bell to let you know whenever we have new videos coming out. Today is Memorial Day, and although Memorial Day is reserved for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, we decided to dedicate our time to acknowledge some legendary black actors who have served in the military branch of the United States government. So, let's get to it. James Earl Jones. Born in 1931 before becoming a voice of a generation, Jones was a pre-med major at the University of Michigan. He joined the Reserve Officer Training Corps, where he liked the structure of the military and got along with many of his fellow cadets. Although he didn't feel that being a doctor was the best for him, Jones chose acting but was sent to serve in the Korean War. With the war intensifying in Korea, Jones expected to be deployed as soon as he received his commission as a second lieutenant. As he waited for his orders, he worked as a part-time stage crew hand at the Ramsdale Theater in Manistee, Michigan. Jones was commissioned in mid-1953 after the Korean War's end and reported to Fort Benning to attend the Infantry Officers Basic Course. He attended Ranger School and received the Ranger Tab. He was initially to report to Fort Leonard Wood, but his unit was instead sent to establish a cold weather training command at the former Camp Hale near Leadville, Colorado. His battalion became a training unit in the rugged terrain of the Rocky Mountains. Jones was later promoted to first lieutenant. Mr.T. Born Lawrence Turode, Mr. T's tough persona didn't just come from playing sports and taking martial arts. He was a man that always demanded respect. The name Mr. T came from a place of deep reflection of the other black men in his life. Mr. T stated, "I think about my father being called boy, my uncle being called boy, my brother coming back from Vietnam and being called boy. So I questioned myself, what does a black man have to do before he's given the respect as a man?" So when I was 18 years old, when I was old enough to fight and die for my country, old enough to drink, old enough to vote, I said I was old enough to be called a man. I self-ordained myself Mr. T so that the first word out of everybody's mouth is Mr. That's a sign of respect that my father didn't get, that my brother didn't get, that my mother didn't get. After receiving a football scholarship to Prairie View A&M University, Mr. T was expelled within the same year. He later joined the United States Army, where he served in the Military Police Corps until he was discharged. After a failed attempt in going pro with the NFL due to a knee injury, Mr. T finally found his big break when he was selected to play B.A. Baracus in the classic action TV show, The A-Team. Morgan Freeman. He may be known as the voice of God, but Morgan Freeman's voice narration is one of many skills that he has acquired over the years. Watching weekly movies at his theater instilled a love of flying for Freeman. He later joined the Air Force after turning down a partial scholarship to Jackson State University. For several years, Freeman worked as an automatic tracking radar repairman and later rose to the rank of Airman First Class. After 4 years of service, Freeman was discharged and moved out west, where he began his acting career by taking acting classes while working part-time as a clerk. Later, Freeman would need to pull on his service experience while filming the groundbreaking film Glory, a story about the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, the Union Army's 2nd African American Regiment in the American Civil War, starring alongside Denzel Washington and Matthew Broderick. Richard Pryor. The late comedian-born Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor would eventually become known as one of the greatest comedians of all time, influencing many of today's top comics. However, before this would happen, Pryor would first serve in the United States Army. When Pryor was 17, he soon learned that a woman that he had been seeing had also been sleeping with his father. In an attempt to escape the messiness, Pryor enlisted in the Army, but his Army service wouldn't be all daisies and lollipops. Although Pryor served in the Army from 1958 to 1960, the majority of his time in the Army was served in Army prison. He was stationed in Germany, where he was involved in a racial incident where a young white soldier laughed a little too hard about the painful black parts in the classic film Imitation of Life. Pryor and several other black soldiers beat and stabbed him, but not to death. However, Pryor was discharged from the Army, he stayed with his grandmother, who was a madam of 3 whorehouses, until he started his journey into comedy. Ice-T. Before he came out with the controversial rap song Cop Killer, and later playing as a cop in movies and TV, he was known as Tracy Morrow. As a youth, Ice-T was known to associate with neighboring gangs, which ultimately led to criminal activity in order to survive. After the birth of his first child, Ice-T enlisted in the Army in 1977 to have a more stable way of bringing in legitimate income. Sammy Davis Jr. This man of many talents may have portrayed a happy and hip cat, but he endured much unhappiness while serving in the Army. During World War II, Davis was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1943 at the age of 18. He was frequently abused by white soldiers from the South and later recounted that he often had multiple fights on a recurring basis. His nose was broken numerous times, permanently flattened, and at one point he was offered a beer laced with urine. He was reassigned to the Army Special Services branch, which put on performances for troops. At one show, he found himself performing in front of the same soldiers who he had previously tussled with based on racial prejudice. Davis, who earned the American Campaign Medal and World War II Victory Medal, was discharged in 1945 with the rank of private. He later said that his talent was the weapon, the power, the way for him to fight. It was the one way I might hope to affect a man's thinking. Harry Belafonte. Harold George Belafonte Jr. was a woman's weakness in the 1950s. His Caribbean flavor introduced the world to the classic Banana Boat song where he croons the lyric, "Day-O." This multi-award-winning actor was born in Harlem, New York to a multicultural family. Later, Belafonte was sent to live with his grandmother in Jamaica for several years. When he returned to the States, Belafonte dropped out of school at the age of 17 and joined the Navy. While in the Navy, he served during World War II. Upon completion of his service, he came back to the U.S. where he worked odd jobs until his first big break in a play where the audience discovered his talents as a singer and an actor. Sherman Hemsley. Sherman Hemsley was a strong black male role model that showed us that it is okay to want more and not take any crap from anyone to get it. Raised by a single mother in South Philadelphia, Hemsley dropped out of school in the 10th grade. After dropping out of high school, Hemsley served for several years in the United States Air Force. After leaving the Air Force, Hemsley still worked an everyday job while he honed his acting chops. Hemsley returned to his hometown Philadelphia and gained employment as a U.S. Postal Service worker. While he worked for USPS, he also attended night classes at the Academy of Dramatic Arts. He continued to moonlight as a government worker until his big hit in the play Pearlie. Later in life, Hemsley would be known for his role as one of TV's most influential male leads, George Jefferson of the hit TV show The Jeffersons. A shy and private individual, the role of Jefferson was a tough role, stated Hemsley when asked about playing the iconic character. Sherman Hemsley died at the age of 74 in 2012. He was unmarried and had no children. So that's it, folks. Did you find something new? I know I did. Another episode don't forget to check us out on Instagram at the Black Male Collective. And also, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much. And subscribe and hit that nice little bell to let you know whenever we have new videos coming out.